Welcome to another episode of Balkans Debrief, where we explore the latest developments and initiatives shaping the European future of the Western Balkans. My name is Ilva Tare, and I'm a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center. Familiar with the Berlin process, people in the Balkans and those working with the region are well aware of this initiative led by several EU member states under German leadership. It aims to engage the 6 Western Balkan countries, focusing on regional cooperation and promoting the European perspective for the region. After facing an impasse and limited results in the last years, the Berlin process was revitalized under Chancellor Scholz's leadership last year, and the upcoming Berlin summit in October, chaired by Albania, seeks to unite Balkan countries with concrete proposals on regional connectivity and integration, requiring indeed substantial funds from the European Union. Today's guest, Odeta Barbullushi, is a Sherpa and Albania's Prime Minister advisor on European issue and regional cooperation. Odeta, welcome to Balkans Debrief.
Thank you, Ilva. It's a pleasure to be at Balkan Debrief.
You have been involved with the Berlin process and the region since 2015. What can you tell us about this newly revived Berlin process for the Western Balkan countries?
Well, yes, indeed. Since its very launch in 2014, the Berlin process has helped to bring the countries of the region closer. It was a unique platform, in fact, from a political perspective, to bring all 6 countries at the same table to discuss the socio and economic perspective of the region, and also to contribute to bring the region closer to the European Union. As you already said in your introduction, in the past few years, we have seen an impasse of Berlin process. Since 2019, in fact, we have seen that both Berlin process and EU accession process have lost their vigor. What we have seen last year with the new administration, a new German government, we have seen the relaunch of the process, which we very much commended and supported. And we had, I think, a very successful relaunch of the Berlin process last year at the Leaders Summit in Berlin. We had already the signing of 3 mobility agreements, which make possible that citizens of all 6 countries in the region can move or can circulate only with their ID cards. Also enables the citizens, but in particular students, to have their diplomas and higher education certificates recognized mutually by the countries, and also the professional qualifications. Now, these agreements were in fact signed and reached bilaterally, trilaterally, or in other formats, but it's very important that they were reached by all 6 countries. This year, Albania has taken the chairmanship of the process, in a way underlining the regional ownership of this process. And we have highlighted not only the political dimension of this initiative, namely the importance of cooperating in the region, of in creating a conducive environment for citizens, for businesses, and for our people to move freely and to have better socioeconomic prospects. But we have also very much emphasized the need to enhance the relationship between the Balkans and the European Union. And we intend to use this initiative, this Berlin process, as a platform to do this and to achieve this.
Odeta, together with the Prime Minister of Albania, you went on this Balkan tour to meet with the leaders of the 6 Western Balkan countries to prepare for the summit. What was the purpose of this tour, and what is required by the countries ahead of the Berlin process summit?
In fact, the aim of the Balkan tour, or the tour of Prime Minister Rama in the region, was threefold. First of all, it was to discuss with the leaders of the region and high-level interlocutors the priorities, the expectations about or from the Albanian chairmanship of the Berlin process, in a way to also exchange views about what lies ahead, what our priorities should be, and how we should boost the socio-economic perspective of the region. Just to remind you, this was a few weeks after the launch by the President of the European Commission of the so-called growth plan for the Western Balkans, including 4 points out of which accelerated integration in the EU single market and deepening regional integration were two of the pillars of this program. So in a way, this visit also aimed to discuss this platform, this program, and to share with the other leaders how to better translate that into proposals and actions, which can be included in the policy agenda and in the deliverables of the Berlin process. It also followed the visit that the Prime Minister had in Brussels, where he discussed at length with leaders of EU institutions the growth plan, but also the situation in the region, and in particular the rising tensions in Kosovo. And this was, in fact, the second aim, the second objective and thematic pillar of the tour in the region. The reason for that was that we wanted to better understand what's going on the ground, but also to share views with interlocutors and particularly with actors in Pristina, but also in Belgrade about the situation, and with the aim to find the way out, to forge a way out of the current status quo or the current impasse. The third reason was related to NATO summit. We had very constructive discussion both in Skopje and in Podgorica, two other allies, about the NATO summit, which was a few days after our Balkans tour, in order to align our views and to have more unified position, so to speak, not just from national perspective, but as a region.
Odeta, will we know more about this growth plan of 4 points that President of European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, mentioned in her speech in Bratislava? Will Berlin summit be a place where we will know more details on how this growth plan will work out?
In fact, as we prepare for the Summit of Leaders on 16th of October, we are already in very close coordination with the EU institutions, particularly with the DG NEAR, with the European Commission, in order to put forward some proposals and some ideas which would help to translate this growth plan into actions that can bring the region closer to the EU single market. Last week, we had a very good meeting with the Commissioner Varhelyi, who was in Tirana for informal lunch with the leaders of the Western Balkans, in which we had the opportunity to hear more from the Commissioner about how this plan can be translated into action, but also how it can be translated in an enhanced financial envelope or enhanced financial
package
instruments for the Western Balkans. This was indeed included as one of the 4 points of the growth plan of the President of the European Commission. And we're looking forward to hearing more from the Commission as how this can indeed be turned into a concrete proposal. We expect this proposal to be tabled at the Berlin summit, and we are in very close coordination also with our German partners to prepare ahead of the summit about these, new ideas, and then to have the countries which are participants of Berlin process support this ahead of the next EU Western Balkans summit. It's very important to underline, Ilva, that what we are doing here as a region very much contributes to or feeds into the discussions of the EU Western Balkan Summit. So we have a continuity of what we are doing here in this regional platform and the EU Western Balkan Summit. And that's why we're also following up and building on some of the deliverables of the EU Western Balkan Summit, which was held in Tirana last year. And we are taking some of these proposals and preparing them as deliverables of Berlin Summit.
Are there any results to show?
I think there will be some results. We will prioritize the traditional areas, in fact, of the Berlin process, such as improving connectivity, improving infrastructure, improving trade, not only among the countries of the Western Balkans and implementing the Common Regional Market Action Plan, but also improving trade among the Western Balkans and the European Union, as well as improving connectivity in the digital area. And I think there are a number of deliverables, particularly in the area of mobility of citizens. We are now finalizing, we're negotiating, and I hope it will be soon finalized, another regional agreement on mutual recognition of more professional qualifications, which will bring, I think, the region very much at the same par with the EU scheme of professional qualifications. And another one on access to access to study to the European Union, which in a way will help our universities and higher education institutions to prepare for gradual integration into the single market in the area of higher education and research.
Thank
In
you for
addition to that,
mentioning
we are
gradual
preparing.
integration, because I will ask you in a bit on a gradual integration. But before we go there, what are the priorities of Albania as the host country of the summit, of the Berlin summit? And what is the role of Albania in this case in coordinating the country's priorities for the Berlin process?
Indeed, the priorities of our chairmanship lie in the areas which I already mentioned and are the traditional policy areas of the Berlin process. But in addition to that, we are emphasizing the need to improve economic convergence between the Western Balkans and the European Union. Indeed, economic convergence has been one of the four pillars of Berlin process as it was launched in 2014, but it was rather underdeveloped pillar or underdeveloped theme, I would say. And the region, the economic potential of the region is still untapped. If or when the common regional market is achieved, it is predicted that the growth of the region would reach to up to 6-7%. And that is indeed significant. And it is a potential which is untapped both internally, but also by the European Union, given the fact that the European Union is the main trading partner of the Western Balkans. So in that light, we are very much working on different ways to improve convergence with the EU. And one of the ways, of course, would be to boost financial support and financial instrument for the region, particularly for those areas which connect the region to the European Union, like transport and railway infrastructure, digital connectivity and cybersecurity, trade, and also higher education and mobility. So these are, and of course, not least important would be energy security and energy connectivity. So these are the areas which have a strategic importance, not just for us, but also for the European Union. And in fact, the potential for growth and also the potential of the European Union as a strategic actor lies in bringing the countries of the Western Balkans in these sectorial areas. So this is indeed one of our priorities, and we are working towards tabling some proposals which we think would improve economic convergence with the European Union.
And Odeta, is it known the amount of funds available from the European Union to be distributed in the Western Balkan countries? And what will be the criteria of receiving these funds?
Yes, there are, at the moment, there are some initial discussions and there are some initial numbers. I think they are still at the very elementary or inception phase, and it's not up to us to actually speak of that. It's rather the Commission who is still discussing and working on some proposals. I think the main idea here is to have a financial boost for those sectors which I already mentioned, but also for the private sector of the region, particularly for small, medium enterprises, given that over 70% of our economies are made up and consist of small, medium enterprises. I think the main criteria here would be the criteria that we have already seen, the conditionality, related to the performance with regard to economic reform programs, and also the compliance with the conditions of the first cluster, like respecting rule of law, good governance, and so on, not least of the funding. However, what I think will be important will be the swifter way of allocating these funds in order to phase in the region into some sectoral policies. And mind you, some phasing in has already been happening for the past years in the energy sector, in the transport sector, as the countries are part of the energy community and transport community. And the conditions, the way we see it, from what we understand, will be similar. The countries need to comply to a set of conditions related to that specific area. And once they comply those conditions, they can have more access to certain funds in that policy area. I think the main challenge here lies with the need to sort of have some key areas which are similar for all of us, and or some actions and proposals which we feel that are urgent and are strategic for all six of us.
Odeta, as you mentioned recently, gradual integration, and you gave some examples that has already started, the phase-in, has gained a new momentum in this EU ever-evolving landscape, this new political steam that is coming out of the EU leaders, especially following the wake-up call from the Russian illegal war in Ukraine, urging EU leaders somehow to safeguard the Western Balkan security and speed up the accession process. What other sectors or institutions could the candidate countries be included in?
I think the main priority would be phasing it into sectoral policies and particularly being phased in the single market. I mean, what we are talking here about is in areas in which we are both more prepared and which are also more strategic. I mentioned trade and transport, in fact, as two of the areas which have an immediate and tangible effect on businesses, on peoples, on economies of our countries. And there are a number of initiatives which we can actually use and build on to phase in the region. Like 2 years ago, we started we started implementing the initiative of green and blue lanes, which would connect the region to the neighboring EU member states. And one of our objectives is that within this year, we complete that initiative and we actually go towards what is called integrated border crossings with neighboring EU countries. And that would mean a sort of first step towards a customs policy. Now, the challenge is to prepare our businesses, to prepare our economies for this phasing in. And that is why we are asking from the European Union to boost and to enhance the financial instrument for us to do that. In addition to this, I think mobility remains very important. It has been a pillar of the Berlin process. Again, is untapped potential when it comes to particularly to professionals, to students, to research. I think these are low-hanging fruits which can be achieved, and the region can indeed be helped and supported to strengthen its capacities and become fully part of European research and higher education area. The third, which I would mention in particular, the third area would be energy, which is also a very costly policy area, as we have seen in the past year. In fact, the war in Ukraine and the inflation crisis which followed that alerted the European Commission and gave up a wake-up call for them to include the region in the common responses to the energy crisis. However, there were no additional funding for that, and the funding in a way were reshuffled and readjusted from the existing pre-accession funds. So we need to look at new instruments which can indeed boost competitiveness of private sector in the region in these areas and prepare our capacities to become part gradually of the single market.
Odeta, I can only imagine how busy you are dealing with the Berlin process preparation and dealing with the 6 Western Balkan countries. But what can you share with us on the mood among the 6 Western Balkan countries on the Berlin process and their expectations from the summit?
I think the expectations are high, but what we have seen in the past few weeks, the situation, the political atmosphere and the political climate hasn't been ideal. And that is why for us as a country holding the chairmanship of the process, it's very important that all countries sit at the table and reach the agreements and are able to finalize the commitments or the deliverables which are tabled and which will be proposed for the summit. This has been indeed a challenge in the past couple of years. And as we have seen in the past weeks, the rising tensions, particularly between Kosovo and Serbia, have in a way alerted us to work with our partners, with our German partners, and with all the other partners in the Western Balkans to ensure that the deliverables will be met, the commitments will be met, to make sure that also agreements which were signed last year are implemented. And this was indeed one of the points that the Prime Minister underlined during his visit in Bosnia and in other capitals during his Balkan tour, but also that the plan of the Commission is discussed and is read with an open mind and heart.
Considering that for the moment the focus in Tirana and in other capitals of the Western Balkans looks like is entirely on the Berlin process, what will happen with the future of the Open Balkan initiative, especially after the comments of Prime Minister of Albania, Edi Rama?
Indeed, all our efforts and attention is now focused on the chairmanship of Berlin process. So we want to make the Summit of Leaders in October this year a success. And as far as the other initiatives are concerned, including the Open Balkans, of course, we'll build on the achievements and the results of these initiatives. In the framework of the Open Balkans, we can say that there are a number of areas in which we have seen tangible results, like in the area, let's say, of trade. We have seen results when we have seen the volume of imports and exports to the countries which were part of this initiative rise dramatically, particularly in comparison to 2020, 2021. We have seen a rising curve of trade volume. We have seen progress and a rising curve also in the area of tourism. And we have seen also a number of trilateral, but also bilateral agreements which were signed in a spirit, let's say, of trust, which was forged by the initiative. And I have here in mind, let's say, the bilateral agreement for the movement of people only with ID between Albania and Serbia, or the bilateral agreement on the border crossing point in Chavthana, which in fact will be inaugurated next week. And one can argue these are bilateral commitments, but like I said, they were taken in a spirit of cooperation and of trust and forged by this initiative. So we'll build on. And I would like to say that the Open Balkans is indeed a process. Is not an event, is not an activity only, but is a process, and we'll build on that. The agenda of the Open Balkans, as I have underlined also on previous occasions, is the agenda of Berlin process. That is the umbrella or the overarching framework in which we'll cooperate. And for us, it's very important now for us to be all six at the table and be able to discuss with the European Union about the economic and social perspective of our region.
And the last questions: where does the United States stand on this process, on the Berlin process summit? Main at the heart is the common regional cooperation. Where does the US stand, and have they or will they send any important messages for the summit?
In fact, the US has supported very strongly both the EU accession perspective of our countries, including the agenda of reforms, but also regional cooperation and different initiatives of regional cooperation, regarding them also as confidence building measures among countries of the Western Balkans. So in that regard, we've had the support of the United States in preparing the priorities, in preparing for the Berlin process, and I think we'll have their support also in negotiating with the countries of the region regarding deliverables and results. What is also important is that the US is a key partner, is a key actor, in fact, not external partner, but an actor in the security dynamics and with regards to solving bilateral issues, or indeed finalizing issues that are inherited from the ethnic wars in former Yugoslavia. So they play a crucial role in state formation, institutional building in the region. And if we look at a Berlin process, not just as an economic initiative, but also as a diplomatic and political instrument, which aims to bring countries of the region together, I think in that regard, the support of the US is instrumental and has been constant.
Odeta Barbullushi, advisor of Prime Minister of Albania. Good luck with the Berlin summit in October in Tirana. Certainly, I'll look forward to witnessing the positive outcomes of that summit. And thank you for joining us today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Ilva. All the best.
And thank you for watching us. As always, you can be part of Balkan Debrief and our conversation by using hashtag @AC Europe on Twitter. Thank you.